Hello and welcome to Sonic Touch episode 7. This is the first show after the NAMM show, obviously. We've got Gaz Williams here, my co-host. I'm myself, Nick Batt from Sonic State. You've actually got a guitar there. You might notice Gaz is holding a guitar. More on that later. But first, a quick roundup of NAMM. Basically, before Christmas, it was quite hard to keep up with a lot of apps coming out, but now obviously this is a quieter period and we're not so full of applications, but there was something that was quite interesting from NAMM, right? What was that? Oh, Aurea.
Aurea, yeah, Wave Machine Labs. That's a 48-track music DAW. It looks much more like what you'd expect to see on a full-blown computer system. It's got VST support, which is a first for an iOS, and some big plugin manufacturers making third-party plugins for it. FabFilter and Overloud.
And PSP providing the channel strip that we saw in the demo version. I mean, this is still demo, it's in development, it's not going to be there just yet. Yeah. I think they were talking for being around 49, 50 bucks, something like that. That was kind of the idea. Yeah. But coming up, we've got an Android app. Finally got something that we can review on Android. More on that later. But Gaz is going to tell us a little bit about some of the apps and applications he's been looking at too. So what you got for us this week, Gaz?
Well, I've been looking at guitar to MIDI options, really, and that's primarily because this app called Shredder has recently come out, which is a guitar synthesizer, and it's quite an interesting app.
Here we go. Yeah,
it's got a guitar to MIDI interface, which you could use as a for wireless to control things on your computer. Right. But it's also got a synth engine built into it too. Quite a lot of thought's gone into it, I think. But the synth engine has quite a crude sound.
Yes, it's sort of buzzy, isn't it? There's quite a lot of buzz to it.
It's fairly quick. Triggering is pretty quick on it, which is quite good.
So what are you using there? Just how are you getting the guitar in? Is it
okay? Well, I'm plugged into the Apogee Jam, which is a little.
Oh, right, that's like a little audio USB interface.
Yeah, that's right. Which I've got plugged in directly, and then at the moment the sound is completely the synth, but I could sort of take a blend of the guitar and the synthesizer.
What's the latency like? I noticed there's a little bit of latency, but it seems...
There's a bit of latency, but you have to bear in mind this is entirely a monophonic synthesizer, so it's only going to recognise one note at a time. So you do have to be very mindful about that, and you have to play very clean and very sort of precise. Yeah. Kind
of like, what's the other thing? There's the Sonos MIDI, guitar to MIDI interface.
Yes, which I've got here.
But there was also one for the Mac. I remember when I reviewed it, and G2M, I think it was, and you had to be very precise and clean, don't you?
And I've been using this Sonos as well, and that's the difference between that and this is that the Sonos does the processing of the guitar to MIDI.
Right, so it does the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and I think that the triggering is quite a bit better with the Sonos, which I guess you'd expect because the processing's done internally. But what we can see now though is if we were to look at Shredder, we can see that we got a fairly kind of complex synth engine. We got some effects which are in the form of guitar pedals. We've also got a thing called Chord Maker, which allows us to generate chords from single notes that we're playing. So I can turn that on. I'm in the minor scale and I'm in the key of C. So it's this kind of pretty gnarly sound.
I mean, the stuff that I've heard is quite buzzy, isn't it? It's got a sort of.
It's quite a lo-fi synth sound, so I'm not sure quite how usable that would be for a lot of people, but. You can get some fairly kind of crazy sounds out of it.
So, is it in any way related to the iShredder, the guitar effects package that runs on iPad as well? Is it something else?
No, that's iShred. That's
iShred.
Right. Yeah, that's a completely different thing. That's like a no. This is a standalone app, but But the thing that is quite nice about it is that it does allow it to be run in the background with the MIDI out. So what that enables us to do is if I was to turn off the synth engine now, so this is still generating MIDI, and then if I was to open up the wonderful Animoog.
Your beloved Animoog.
Yes. And then we can actually trigger Animoog from the Shredder app.
Is it complicated to set up, or how do we have to do it? Perhaps you can show us.
A few things we have to bear in mind. We have to make sure that MIDI out is enabled, and if we go to the MIDI here, we have to then sort of select the MIDI destination. In this case, I'm going to turn on the Animoog MIDI in.
Okay, so that switches it on.
Yes, with a little tick there. So now that's transmitting out, and if we go to Animoog and we make sure we can see their Shredder MIDI out is selected.
Good Lord, it works.
So, yes, it works. So we're playing Animoog now, but with the guitar.
And how, I mean, I'm guessing it's sort of better suited to sort of slow evolving things than really fast patches, right?
Yes. From my playing around, both with the Shredder synth engine and using Animoog as well, slow attacks are much more satisfying because of the little latency. If you try and play anything that's kind of rhythmic or funky, you know, it's a little hard because there is that little sort of lag there. So here's something. I've just created a very simple little backing track within Animoog. So if I play that now, it's just like a bed in order to play over.
And that's just playing over the. So we once again to explain, we're using Shredder to do convert the guitar to MIDI,
yeah.
And the MIDI is then going from Shredder into Animoog that you played, and that little loop there was just something you recorded on the loop feature within Animoog, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because this is the thing, you see, because it's only like a monophonic trigger, you know, it's not that satisfying to play on its own. So to have something to play over really kind of gives you a little focus of what to do with it. And again, just mentioning that thing, slow attacks, more kind of evolving things, you know, you'll probably find more kind of pleasing.
So do you think you could, I mean, is it robust enough to be able to kind of maybe, you know, get some little loopy sort of stuff together and, you know, could you play out with it, or is it a little bit too fragile?
I think you could. I was experimenting having it on an effects loop on my Pod X3 Live and blending the sounds in with like some really nice affected guitar sounds, and that was really nice because that was bringing in nice high harmonics which are coming in with slow attacks, and you know, so I can imagine for people who are making soundscape type kind of things, I can imagine that being very useful. You know, I think if you were to try and play kind of funky stuff, forget it.
Yeah, I mean, the latency, you know, with that kind of feel-orientated stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's the same thing with all guitar to, well, lots anyway, pitch to MIDI things. I mean, you do get late. I mean, obviously, the further down the neck you're going, the wave cycle is longer, so it takes longer for the algorithm to discover what the pitch is. I mean, that's just physics. I mean, obviously, with stuff like the hex pickups of the Roland things, you can cut
they're polyphonic for a start.
Yeah.
So I mean, this, you know, the fact that it is really affecting the way in which you play means that, you know, it's not maybe as satisfying as you'd like it to be. But, you know, you don't want to rule it out, though, because it is, you know, there is certainly, you know, creative uses for it. Going back to the Shredder thing itself, the synth in Shredder, I think you may find a little crude, a little rude, but who knows, you know, people maybe could find something pretty good with it.
And what about the actual guitar sounds itself within Shredder?
Well, it has got some effects in there, and if we were to put the guitar mix up and to be entirely just the dry guitar signal going through the effects here.
And that's polyphonic, right? You can play chords and stuff.
I mean,
it doesn't sound like that's its forte, perhaps.
No, it's not its forte. You know.
So really, it's more about guitar to MIDI and the synthesizer engine.
I think so, and I think that it has a, you know, you've got like the input sensitivity and the decay threshold, so you can play with those parameters there to try and get it to sort of trigger, you know, the best for your particular instrument there, and then as we mentioned, in the fact that it will actually sort of fire MIDI out.
That's kind of the key point.
That's the key point.
So, what about prices and that sort of stuff?
£13.99 UK pounds. I would think that's probably the $20 sort of price point. You know, pretty good if you were thinking of just a standalone guitar to MIDI monophonic. The synthesizer engine, it's not the best. It's a bit.
Well, what I heard, it was quite buzzy, wasn't it?
Buzzy,
it doesn't feel very musical, and it's got a sound that's perhaps not so harmonically lovely.
No, again, you know, it could maybe find a place somewhere in your music, but I think, you know, but when you are, say, maybe triggering Animoog, suddenly Animoog is a much finer sounding.
But surely there are other options for doing that anyway. I mean, you say we've got the Sonus, we've got other things that we could possibly use to do the same thing, right?
That's true. I mean, like the Sonus i2M, for instance, I found to be really good at triggering, and of course that will work in your computer as well, and it functions as an audio interface, albeit just a mono.
Have you got that there? You can just hold it underneath the camera. Can I have a look?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's got the sort of DSP for converting into it built in, right?
That's correct, yeah. And it's sort of actually, it's not a bad sounding guitar interface either.
Oh, it does the audio as well, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And how much is that one?
That one's, I think, 119 UK pounds.
Right, so it's a bit more of a serious budget then. So
yeah. But that comes with software as well that you configure. You can't configure it, the Sonus, from the iPad, but if you plug it in to your computer, then there is quite a lot of programmability to it that then stores in it. For instance, you can have there's 4 different modes which are selectable by the switch. There's a little switch on there, and then we can have. It's got like a bass mode. It's got a guitar mode. It's got a voice mode as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a really cool little box actually, the Sonus. But again, you know, you pay for
different kettle of fish.
Different kettle of fish, yeah.
Okay, but now this is a bit of a milestone for Sonic Touch. This is our first ever Android app review, and it's something called TouchDAW by who is it, Gaz? I keep forgetting. Humatic. I've got a mental block about it. I don't know why. And it's running here on my trusty HTC Desire, which is quite long in the tooth. In fact, there you can see that it says move all day tomorrow. So that's in fact what we're going to be doing. If I just launch it here, Humatic. Now, what it is essentially is a MIDI control surface. So it's kind of like Touch OS, Lemur kind of thing, although it's not configurable in the same way. You can set it up to work with various different DAWs. It's got templates for Mackie control of those DAWs, but it's also got some additional control, and it's got 2 ports. So you can have Mackie emulation control plus pads and keypads and XY and all that sort of thing. So I've got it set up here with Ableton Live. Let's take a look. So first thing I need to do is set up the MIDI network as usual. It's pretty much the same as an iOS device. These are the 2 ports that the application transmits on, 1 and 2. I'm using 1 for control and 2 for MIDI. So now if I go to Ableton Live, go into my MIDI setup here, I should be able to. Control surface is network control, and then I've also got a network MIDI set up as well. So let's just go to the phone. This is kind of essentially a channel strip. It's just like a single channel of Mackie control. I can hit the transport control. You see I get actual metering, I get the control of the volume. I can flip between different channels using this left and right cursor. I can flip views. Now if I bring up the main view and bring this in, I can flip views between track mode and clip mode. I've also got these other little features. So right here I've got XY pads. So if I now select my sim plant and I set the automation up so that it will affect the volume and the reverb depth. I can trigger clips, so I've set these up with the MIDI remote mode. So quite a lot of stuff I could do there. There's also, if I go to portrait mode, a kind of mixer mode, and I think there's a keyboard mode in here somewhere. Let's just get that keyboard. Here we go, and I can, which the latency's not bad. So overall, I was actually quite pleasantly surprised with TouchDAW. I suppose I expected, because it was Android, that it would be somehow inferior and sluggish, and because we've been told by various developers that it's not really designed for a real-time kind of audio thing. To be fair, this wasn't actually audio; it's MIDI, but it did work quite well. Any questions?
Well, you found the setup to be fairly straightforward.
Setup was pretty straightforward. I couldn't get it to work with an ad hoc network, but I don't know whether that's an Android thing or what. But it seemed to work fine on the standard network, and I didn't get all that much latency. I mean, with the keyboard, it seemed to be actually pretty responsive and snappy. The free application actually gives you plenty of functionality, though. If you want to get in there and configure the control values and tweak, then you need to pay for the upgrade, which is only £3.50, £3.30, maybe €4, something like that. So what, I'm guessing in the region of $6. So overall, I think TouchDAW by Humatic, very good buy. Actually, you could just get it from the Android marketplace, which is integrated into most phones. Pretty straightforward purchase. You just buy it, download it. It's fairly painless. The only thing is, obviously on a phone this size, it's not the most compelling experience. I think if you get a tablet, it will sort of scale nicely to be a bigger experience and be something that's perhaps a bit more kind of usable. Yeah. But, it worked fine for what I was, for the purposes of this test. So Gaz has got another application he wants to show us. So what is it we're looking at here, Gaz?
Well, it's a drum machine. I think it's been out a while, but it's only just come to my attention. It's called DM1, made by FingerLab. And it's...
here?
Yeah, and I think... it's really, really nice to use, and I think it's one of these apps that kind of really sort of benefit from the touchscreen idiom, like we can just call up sort of drum sounds.
It's got lots of different kits, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's got a terrific selection of kits. You've got like the classics, your 808s and 909s.
About time somebody put those in.
But I mean, it's got the Mattel there.
It's in Sonics.
But it's got acoustic drum kits as well, which sound quite nice. And some melodic, sort of like balafon. And also, one thing that I particularly like with this, look, it's got a Bristol patch. The
sound of Bristol. So what does Bristol sound like then,
Gaz? Let's have a listen. So, if I call up my pads here, you see, we've got
I'm guessing it's that old trip hop, that whole trip hop thing again, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
So it's got a pitch controller as well, right?
Yeah. I really like this app. I think it's laid out really nicely. And look, we've also got
dual XY pads.
Dual XY pads, yeah, and with various different kind of effects you can map to them. Dry and wet controls on there. As I say, there's like 40 different drum kits, so plenty of drum sounds. Step mode plus a real-time mode, and there's also like a song mode where you can kind of chain all the patterns together. And it looks, I think it's 25 patterns. And if we go into our step mode here, we can control how many steps.
Oh, it's very touch friendly.
It's
right?
really and like, I mean, look, we can put sort of we can put the sounds in really quick, it's sort of...
you can almost paint them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, so...
Let's have a listen to some of those effects while we're there, shall we?
Okay, so... let's get on the effects here. It's a delay here. It's overdrive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is texturalizer.
Is it standalone, or can you sync and stuff?
Yeah, I don't find any sync options. You've got an export function where you can sort of export things.
Bounce the WAVs and
yeah, but and I can sort of make a mix down of it like so, and but it doesn't have the audio copy and paste yet, which I'd like to see, because that makes it play well with other apps. But as a standalone sort of drum machine, it's really nice.
It's a lot of fun. Okay, and you got it for a bit of a bargain, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was like 69p when I bought it.
Oh man, that's sweet. Actually, now it's £5.99, so I'm guessing that's a $10 type.
No, $5.99. So I think probably around three.
Oh yes, $5.99. There you are. You're right. So that was DM1 from Finger Labs, $5.99, so I'm guessing it's going to be around £3 or £4. But it is worth actually keeping an eye on apps. I mean, how do you actually keep a track on when those deals are there?
Well, I've got a little app which is called AppsFire, and we can see there's like price drops here, and I've got it on music here, and we can see like the Strobosoft, which is a great tuner, is down there, and
that's interesting.
Across here, Synthex,
$2.99.
Yeah.
Bargain.
Yeah, wonderful.
So that's a really useful thing. Actually, I wonder if we can get an RSS feed for that, because that'd be something that'd be quite useful for us to be able to just put and republish. Because I think that people could track their apps.
Yeah, because we see this. We see the apps dropping in prices. You know, I guess they're always trying to sort of bump them up the charts by just making them either free or really, cheap. We notice like Animoog. Animoog keeps changing prices. I think it's meant to be like around £20, $30 or something, but it keeps dropping in price. So it's a good idea to kind of keep an eye on things.
Right, so top tip there for keeping eye on applications and saving. That pretty much finishes us up for this Sonic Touch episode 7. Thank you very much for watching. I hope we'd see your comments below. We love to keep them coming. Anything you want us to see, or indeed if you see any other Android apps that will work on my crummy phone, then let us know too. So once again, thank you very much for watching. This is Gaz Williams at songsurgeon.co.uk. I think I might even have a lower third for him there. There we go. A lower third for him. I'm Nick Batt, editor of Sonic State, and that was Sonic Touch episode 7. Thanks very much.